The Krell don't cry. Their biology won't allow it. But on the bridge of the Talon's Pride, Captain Vexthor made a sound that every species in the galaxy would recognize as a parent's anguish. The shuttle is gone, his second officer reported, mandibles clicking in distress. Ice storm consumed it. No life signs. 12 cubs. 12 younglings on their ceremonial first flight to the ice moon of Theta, 7. All gone in minutes when the freak storm had appeared from nowhere, tearing their shuttle apart and scattering the wreckage across 50 kilometers of frozen wasteland. The temperature outside was negative 170 degrees Celsius. Even in thermal suits, the cubs would last maybe 20 minutes. It had been 3 hours. The Krell bridge crew stood in silence, their chitinous bodies rigid with grief. They were warriors, traders, survivors of a dozen conflicts. But this? This was different. These were their children. "Captain," the communications officer whispered. "The human vessel is responding to our distress call." Vexthor's compound eyes dimmed. The USS Perseverance, a small human research ship studying the system's outer planets. What could they possibly do? Humans were soft, weak things. Clever, yes, but fragile. They couldn't survive temperatures that would merely inconvenience a Krell. Tell them thank you for their concern," Vexthor managed. "Sir, they're saying they've already dispatched someone. 90 minutes ago." Vexthor's head snapped up. "What? That's impossible. We only sent the distress call 40 minutes ago. They picked up the shuttle's emergency beacon before we did. Someone named Lieutenant Jake Morrison launched immediately in an atmospheric suit. One human." Vexthor felt something between disbelief and rage. "In that storm? That's suicide." The human captain's voice crackled over the comm. "Lieutenant Morrison is from Colorado, Captain. He knows cold. Trust me." Trust. What an absurd concept. Trust that a single human could succeed where a Krell would freeze solid in minutes. Trust that their soft skin and weak constitution could withstand what even the hardiest species would flee from. But there was nothing else. No hope left to cling to. So they waited. The bridge fell into that terrible silence unique to those who have already begun grieving. The Krell crew checked their stations with mechanical precision, but their hearts had gone dark. Outside the viewport, Theta, 7 rotated slowly, its surface a swirling mass of white and gray, beautiful and merciless. 2 more hours passed. The human ship sent regular updates, but each one was the same: no contact with Lieutenant Morrison. "He's dead too," Vexthor said quietly. "I sent him to his death by letting us hope." "Captain," the sensor operator suddenly stiffened. "I'm detecting something. At the original crash site. It's moving." Every eye turned to the screen. A thermal signature, faint but unmistakable, trudging through the storm. But it was too large for one being. Much too large. "Magnify," Vexthor ordered. The image resolved slowly, fighting through interference from the storm. And then they saw it. A figure, humanoid, covered head to toe in frost so thick it looked like a walking glacier. But it was moving with purpose, steady, relentless. And in its arms, clinging to its back, strapped to its chest with torn pieces of shuttle metal and cable, were shapes. Small shapes. "The cubs," someone whispered. "All of them," another added, voice breaking. The human was carrying all 12 younglings. Some were conscious, their small arms wrapped around his neck and waist. Others appeared to be in emergency hibernation, bundled against his body. The lieutenant had torn apart his own thermal suit, wrapped pieces around each child, and was walking through a storm that should have killed him in the first 10 minutes. "Get a shuttle to those coordinates now." Vexthor roared, his grief transforming instantly to desperate hope. The rescue took another 30 minutes. When the bay doors finally opened and the Krell medical team rushed forward, they found Lieutenant Jake Morrison standing perfectly still, frost covering every centimeter of his body, his face barely visible behind a mask of ice. His eyes, somehow still open, tracked the medics as they carefully removed each cub from his improvised harness. One by one, they counted. 1, 2, 5, 8, 12. All 12 cubs. Cold, frightened, some with frostbite on their extremities, but alive. Every single one alive. Only when the last cub was safely in the medic's arms did Morrison finally move. He took one step forward and collapsed. The human medical team swarmed him immediately. Later, Vexthor would learn that Morrison's core body temperature had dropped to 32 degrees Celsius, well into severe hypothermia. His fingers and toes showed signs of frostbite. He had mild exposure burns on his face where the suit's heating elements had overloaded trying to keep him warm. He'd been conscious and walking for over 4 hours in conditions that should have killed him in 20 minutes. The human doctor explained it while Morrison recovered in the medical bay. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We're built to keep going long after our bodies should quit. Add in military survival training and a stubborn bastard from the Rocky Mountains. She shrugged. Jake Morrison wasn't going to let a little ice storm stop him. A little ice storm. Vexthor would have laughed if he remembered how. 3 days later, Morrison was released from medical care. Vexthor met him in the corridor, along with every adult Krell whose cub had been on that shuttle. The human looked embarrassed by the attention, his bandaged hands clasped behind his back. Lieutenant Morrison, Vexthor began, then stopped. What words existed for this? In Krell culture, a life debt was sacred. This human had saved 12 lives, had walked through death itself to bring their children home. Morrison shifted uncomfortably. Sir, I just did my job. Anyone would have. No, Vexthor interrupted, his voice resonating through his chest in the Krell manner of absolute certainty. No, they would not have. They could not have. He stepped forward, placing his massive clawed hand gently on Morrison's shoulder. You walked through our nightmare. You carried our future through hell frozen over. And you brought them all back. The human's eyes glistened with something, moisture. Were humans crying? But Morrison smiled slightly. I've got 2 kids back home on Earth. When I heard those emergency beacons. He trailed off. I just kept thinking about my little Emma and Jack. Someone else's kids needed help. So I went and got them. The Krell don't cry. But that day, in the corridor of the Talon's Pride, Captain Vexthor learned that sometimes gratitude and grief and joy can create sounds that transcend biology. And he learned something else, something that would change how the Krell viewed humanity forever. Humans are soft. Humans are fragile. Humans have no armor, no natural weapons, no resistance to cold that would make other species envious. But humans will walk through hell itself for someone else's children. And that makes them the strongest species Vexthor had ever encountered.